Good afternoon. Hi. All right. I am so excited to be here. So excited to see all of you. Actually, quite a few familiar faces. My name's Ethan Lester. I'm a clinical psychologist at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. I have a couple other clinical sites. I work at Spalding Rehab in Charlestown. It's it's like a 150-bed rehabilitation hospital, and I work on the stroke service there. And then I'm also at Mass Eye and Ear in the departments of ophthalmology and otolaryngology, which took me about 5 years to learn how to say. I just want to get started here. Like I said, it's so good to see all of you. This is my, I think, fourth summit. How many people is this their first summit? All right. Very cool. Okay. Congrats. Welcome. Yeah, it's something to be proud of. Who's been here to 2 summits? Okay. Also applause. Yeah, it's nice. 3 summits. All right. Nice. 4 summits. 5 summits. Who thinks they have the longest summit record here? How many have we done? Okay, let's see. Can you yell out how many summits you've done? Wow. Okay. That might be 12 or 13, so congrats for that. Yeah. Fabulous. Okay. Well, I don't need to make the point because I think everyone here understands the value of this organization and this community. I want to start first by saying I don't have any conflicts of interest or disclosures to make, but I do have to say that so much of my work in this space and my career where I am today is because of CTF. I've just had a wonderful connection and opportunity to work with this organization. And so I started in 2018 in Boston, and I've been there ever since and have been doing this work ever since too. So it's been a lot of fun. Like I said, no disclosures to make, but thanks again to these organizations. So this is our agenda for today. The first 3 are going to be more of a teaching conceptual talk. It'll be about 40 minutes with some opportunities. I saw this room come alive when I was first here, seeing everybody talking and chatting. So you'll certainly have some opportunities to do that again during this first talk. The 4th number up here, which is reviewing skills for managing mental health and improving coping broadly, that's the 3 o'clock talk. And believe me, I will not be offended if you don't want to listen to me talk for the whole time. If you want to go get some sunshine, or I hear there's a great coffee place across the street, wellness takes any form, so don't feel like you have to spend all your time here with me. But if you find that interesting and you'd like to practice some of the skills that I discussed today, the second talk will be more of an experiential opportunity to practice those skills that we talk about. All right. And again, it's lovely. I've gone to many scientific conferences where I've actually done a couple conferences where I have people practice how to say neurofibromatosis. And then, we all say NF after that. But it's so nice to talk to an audience where I don't have to do that. Everybody can pronounce it. Everybody knows what it is. In fact, many people in one way or another are living with it, whether it's with family or for themselves. So I don't even have to go into the details of the 3 distinct types. And there's been some name changes to one of them. So I won't go into all that detail. But these are more or less the 3 distinct types. And who here is familiar with some of the topics of mental health and neurofibromatosis? Okay, great. I would say, especially if you've been to previous summits where I've either spoke or we've had some amazing professionals talk about this, it shouldn't surprise you that with any chronic illness, the chances of psychological, mental, and emotional challenges goes up. And that being said, this is true too for NF. But for some illnesses, NF even far and exceeds what you would expect for a chronic illness when it comes to mental health challenges. So when we look at the data on mental health issues, we see that NF has a higher level overall of emotional distress. So that includes things like depression, anxiety, nonspecific mood disorders, and suicidal ideation, suicidality, risks of harming oneself. These are just much higher than the general population. More pain, right? I don't have to spell that out for you guys, although it's spelled P-A-I-N. No. obviously more pain with NF. Anywhere where there's nerves, there could be an impact of pain, and that is the nature of the condition. And I know this isn't speaking across the board for all three, but it is worth mentioning that this chronic health condition has overall more pain related to it. More coping difficulties, and we don't know if this is a chicken or the egg kind of issue. If kind of from the start there's less resource, I don't necessarily think so. I think it has more to do with our environment not really being supportive of some of the chronic health conditions and some of the challenges that come with living with those. And so coping difficulties just become harder, especially when there aren't the structures to support that. And I just want to say this, because saying lower quality of life makes it sound like everybody in this room doesn't have a great quality of life. That is not the case. In fact, there's a flip side to this coin, which is if you have to work really hard at a good quality of life, that means you're resilient. And we'll talk about that resilience in this talk in the next one as well. But lower quality of life as we define it by the World Health Organization quality of life metric. This includes physical quality of life, psychological, environmental, and social quality of life. There's a couple other questions related to that. But like I said, all of these in NF are higher than the general population. And some of the research shows that it's actually higher than in some chronic health conditions as well. Okay. So I just want you to take a moment and reflect on this question yourself. I love this picture. I use it in like half of my PowerPoints. I want you to reflect on this question for all of maybe 10 seconds on your own. What are some of the challenges you have faced related to NF? And if you don't have NF personally, this is why this question is written this way. Related to NF, whether it's something you've experienced personally, or somebody you love, or somebody you care for, professionally or non-professionally speaking. And here's our opportunity. You guys get to talk with one another. So I'm going to take just a couple, maybe 3 or 4 minutes for you to turn to the person next to you, or maybe reach across the aisle, and like they do in Washington. And no, I'm just kidding. Reach across the aisle and talk to the person across the aisle or someone next to you to be able to just talk for a minute and try and figure out that question. The question being, what does all this mean to you? So go ahead, chat with your neighbor. Okay. If you can hear my voice, clap once. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. If you can hear my voice, clap 3 times. All right. Good. Very good. I assume you are all still happy, so I won't ask again. So it's a good question. I think, resiliency kind of as it's defined is one thing. We also say it's the ability to bounce back. Did anybody kind of use those words when they were describing it for themselves? Right? Not like from a hangover, but like actually like bouncing back, like the neck. Well, there's a little bit of resilience, right? But no, the ability to bounce back, to get through hardship. Did people use the word adapt? Yeah? Or maybe change, grow. So resiliency is an amazing topic because really before the 1980s in psychology, most of our topics were focused on psychopathology, issues with people's mental health. We just assumed that like most people start out fine, but there's all these clinical issues that just pop online for a few 5 to 10% of people. No, it doesn't work that way. Mental health is exactly what it sounds like. It's your health as it pertains to your mental and psychological functioning, and we all have it, and we all have the possibility of having some kind of mental challenge or mental illness. A lot of it has to do with our environments. And so you've maybe experienced some of those needs to adapt and become resilient, even in the face of your own adversity as it relates to NF or other chronic illnesses you may have. So we paired and shared. You guys probably know this too, but since I've been giving this talk, there's been the introduction of a new pharmacotherapy, which has been great. They're a huge sponsor of this summit, so it's very nice to have something beyond the 2 things I listed here prior. The surgical and palliative interventions typically revolve around let's take it out or let's reduce the pain, but there aren't any real curative options for people with NF. There's a lot of management, And there's some new pharmacotherapies that have been helpful. But, treatments are limited. It's not like it just goes away. That is chronic illness. Less attention, although I'll have to say, since I've been coming to CTF's conferences for the past half decade, a little more, there has been more attention formally paid through the wonderful work of patient advocates and researchers and clinicians to try and pay more attention to some of the psychological and social factors that affect their patients. And there's this term we use called biopsychosocial. It's the model of psychology that most clinicians are practicing these days, where we're talking about not just a person's biological functioning, we're also talking about how that relates to their psychological and social functioning. And any intervention that's working in chronic illness should probably take some kind of approach that involves incorporating the mind, the body, and the relationship between those two. And that's actually our jumping off point for a lot of our work at Mass General Hospital where I work. So has anybody heard of the Relaxation Response Resiliency Program? Oh, cool. Okay, the 3RP. We adapted this. This was actually a stress management program that had come out of some research at Mass General that uses a specific technique. It's a behavioral medicine, cognitive behavioral therapy technique. But we've actually run a clinical trial, testing some of these mind-body interventions, specifically the Relaxation Response Resiliency Program. And what we've seen is that it can actually, through a fairly short course of treatment, produce some enhancement in quality of life and resiliency variables as we define them in people with NF. So I'll get a little bit more into the details of what that is, but I just like to put that out there. For the limited amount of treatments that are NF specific, there is one that we've studied that has actually gotten federal funding and has completed in its efficacy trial that shows improvement over the course of treatment for people with NF. So I think it's pretty exciting. The first little picture up here, I know it's impossible to read it, it's so small, but on the first was our adult trial, 18 and older, and this was a global sample. So we were able to collect data from participants who were in our clinical trial all across the world, people in India, people in Australia, people in the UK, people in America. And we finished that trial a couple years ago, and we've published the results on that. And I believe it was in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. And it's a really interesting study. I'm happy to share it with you guys. But what we were finding from that trial, and actually we did a pilot study that was funded by CTF, what we found in the R01 and that pilot study is that for a good number of people, it was approximately a third of people who wanted to participate in a live video conferencing intervention, 8 weeks. The time commitment, the scheduling, the technology that was required, the internet connection, just the bandwidth to log in became very challenging for these people. Of course, this was before COVID, a lot of it. So I think more people are familiar with Zoom now. Who knows what Zoom is, right? I'm sure if we asked the teen room, they would all please. They call some of their generation, they're called the Zoomers now. Have you heard that? Like baby boomers, Zoomers, clever. I think they're also called iGen and what else? Gen Z. Gen Alpha's, I think, what my daughter is now. She's 2.5, but I think it started, I don't know, I'd have to look it up, but generational. Anyway, so the nice thing about collecting some of that feedback from our exit interviews is we actually found that there was some rationale for creating some kind of website, asynchronous web-based platform, as the research calls it, but a website that could put all of these skills online in a repository. And we did short videos based on participant feedback. We did quizzes as part of the website. There was a discussion board when the website was live for the trial. And it's been wonderful. That was part of my postdoctoral fellowship, was designing this website and taking all of that information and putting it online and running a trial off of it. And so I'll show you a video of what that looks like in just a second. But the third one that says, or the little hourglass thing, is our adolescent trial. So similar to our adult trial, which was about 220 participants, we collected the same number of participants more or less for our adolescent groups. Those were individuals ages 12 to 17 globally across the globe, I'm sorry. And the reason it has a pending sign is because we haven't published the efficacy trial data from it yet, but we're currently analyzing that data in the Center for Health Outcomes at Mass General. So exciting, right? You go from not a lot of treatments to potentially 3, and the NF Web that I'm about to show you, we just applied for a PCORI grant as well with Vanessa Merker, who you might have heard speak this morning. So we really need, implementation scientists and data scientists, advocates who can really put this work forward. So I'll show you this video really quick. I think if I just click it, it's going to start going. So so there's no sound on this video, but this is the landing page of NF Web. Have people seen this from a previous year? Maybe. All right. I don't know. It's like what do they call it? One dog show, or one horse pony. Yeah, one trick pony. One trick pony, or the dog riding the pony. Yeah. I wish I had a pony. That would make this talk so much better. But what we can do after the talk too, there's a little QR code down here. You're welcome to scan it. If you can get it from your seat, go ahead. But I wouldn't go crazy trying to scan it. I'll put it up at the end. But this is the landing page. We have a home page. It gives all of the background. The courses, you can open each one of these sessions, and within this session, you'll have specific modules, little videos that you can click open, and you'll see my face. And if you can tolerate that, then you can watch the video. But you'll see things like the overview of the session. Also, all of these sessions are transcribed, so they should be accessible to people with hearing differences or visual differences. So I guess I forgot that you can rate the videos. Please don't do that. But yeah, so here's an example, the different tutorial pages and things like that. But the feedback we got from this program, we trialed this in almost 40 participants, and is that it actually really enhanced their ability to participate in their own mental and emotional health care on their own. They didn't have to go into groups. They didn't have to schedule something out. In fact, similarly to like just opening up another app, you could open up this web page and click into a video and learn something about mindfulness or about coping. And there were homework and quizzes and things like that. I'll do one caveat for this website, and I have to say it now because I don't want you to give up on it. Our institution, who is I always get these words confused. They're like the server, or they're like, who's like a tech person? What we have domain servers, like who? Oh, our host. Is it a host? I don't either. Anyway, if you tried to open the website right now, you would get to the homepage. You could click into the courses, but it literally takes 37 seconds for that loading page to load because there's a cache issue. I don't know what that means, but the tech guy said he's working on it. So just, twiddle your thumbs or have a conversation while that page loads. Is anybody opening it and seeing what I'm talking about? No, a little bit. Okay. And I'm sorry about that. This was a poor postdoc's salary trying to put this website together. I'd never designed a website before, and I'm not sure I ever will again, but this is what you get. But anyway, so yeah, just be patient on the loading course page. Once the 37 seconds goes by, and it's exactly 37 seconds every time, you get the courses, I promise. And you can watch all the videos. They're hosted on YouTube. It's great. But yeah, sorry about that. I tried to have it fixed before I got here. I was on the phone with my tech guy yesterday. So anyway, here's the big screen. So if you capture that, you're welcome to go check out this website. It's pretty cool. Even if you don't use it, maybe you know someone who's interested. The skills are specific to NF, but they're also general behavior medicine and cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. Let's say you're a parent and you have 2 kids. One of them has NF, the other one might not. Maybe they do it together, right? I still think they could probably get a lot out of it together if they're interested. But when we look at this intervention, obviously there's a ton of different things that stand out as being important. And these are more anecdotal than I would say data-driven observations. But having run almost 200 of the 220 participants in the virtual video trial, and then having designed this website, doing all the videos and analyzing the data from the asynchronous platform, what I can tell you is that these are some of the things I've observed that make these interventions work. Number one, there's something about mindfulness. And this is what my dissertation was on. This is what like a lot of my graduate work was on. And you've probably heard about mindfulness, you know about the Headspace app, you know about all this stuff and whatnot. But mindfulness is an incredible clinical tool because it essentially changes the way we think, right? For any meaningful change to occur for a person mentally or psychologically, there's this old truism that we say, awareness precedes meaningful change, okay? So if you're aware that there's a problem and you don't get so stuck in your head about why you did something the way you did it, blah, 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 and you're just mindful and you do it without judgment and you do it with curiosity, mindfulness is a very powerful change agent. If something isn't working for you, if you start paying attention to it mindfully, it helps you take effective and thoughtful action. So first thing I've noticed, mindfulness is a big part of a lot of interventions these days. The second is development of coping skills. I think that makes sense, right? Once you start paying attention to all the things that you want to change, then you need skills to make those changes, right? So managing things like uncertainty or, you know, specific NF-related challenges, whether it be sleep or it be pain management or it be, you know, social support, things like that. Coping skills to be able to manage that are very important. And the third is a sense of social support. I for sure saw this in the video conferencing trial. I saw this on the discussion boards, and when we got feedback, we heard from a lot of our participants that even with an asynchronous platform, the ability to hear other people's experiences and kind of collect in one space on the website was really important. So social support and a social network or a community such as CTF really helps. There's power in numbers, that collective consciousness, that ability to just gather information and hear from one another and feel that sense of belonging and support. So this is what I think works as part of these interventions. There's a lot of other things too, but that's, if I were to like boil this down and put it in a bottle, that's what I would give you. Okay. So I just want, you know, if anybody feels brave and, you know, whether it's been something related to therapy, you can mention, you don't need to get into great detail, or if it's something like a spiritual community, or if it's something you've even experienced at CTF. But what have you tried when it comes to managing some of your mental and emotional health and the thing that keeps you resilient, keeps you going? Who feels brave? Yeah, what are you thinking? Oh. Incredible. Yeah. So the agility training, is this like training them and like doing the course? Nice. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that combines like, I'm sure it's a very mindful practice for both of you. Awesome. What have others tried? Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And barring any like major crisis, like getting in a car and like, you know, going on the road. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And some might hear that, and I don't want to capture your experience wrong if I am, but, you know, some might hear that as like, oh, distraction or kind of just getting away from it all. But I see driving and listening to music as two very mindful activities if you do them well. Right? That's right. And music is amazing too, because we've looked at MRI research where, well, not just MRI, but fMRI research as well, where you look at the way the brain lights up when you listen to music. It looks like a Christmas tree. It's just, there are certain activities like, you know, eating, you know, the pleasurable activities. I won't get into big detail on those, but they affect very strongly a very specific part of your brain. But music somehow weaves a beautiful quilt. It hits memory and it hits emotion, and it also has words and there's lyric, and you don't even have to be a musician to be a music appreciator. So I love that. Music and positive activities like that. What other things have you tried? Yeah.
I know this is very niche, but with my job, I like to fix chainsaws because of all the things, of all the things I can't control in life. I can take a chainsaw that's not working and troubleshoot it, and I have some sense of control, and it's like a little problem I get to figure out, and usually I'm alone, so it just gives me space to think and just problem solve.
Yes, and getting fully enmeshed in that activity. And I imagine there's a certain level of safety. You have to be careful. All right. But being able to do that and being fully present, and it's interesting. You both have actually mentioned activities that aren't necessarily social in nature. But I bet if there was like a music driving club and like you had like good recommendations, right? Or a chainsaw fixing club, like no. All right, I'm trying too hard. No, I think that's great. And again, no need to disclose. We have the second talk, which isn't being recorded at 3. We'll do more of the skills and experiential. But for some people, it looks like therapy. For some people, it might be peer support or peer support programming, the things that are happening in this space with CTF right now, just being able to hear from other people who may feel or who have experienced similar things that you have. All very important ways of coping. So if you're not sticking around for the 3 o'clock talk, that's totally fine. Like I said, DC is really cool. There's that natural science history museum.
Yeah.
Keep butchering that. Go check it out. It's super cool. There's a pool here. But I want to give you guys a takeaway real quick, if that's okay. If you've attended a few of my talks, this might be an old hat, but I'm going to throw it up there. I love this slide too, because cats. Right? I know, cat people. Rock on. Yeah. So I'm just going to give you some brown bag takeaway. We call these the brown bag because you can kind of put these in your pocket and take them home with you. But when we're talking about being resilient and staying resilient, in addition to those 3 kind of what works as part of these treatments, I'm going to give you a few takeaways, right? So the first is just keeping up with basic self-care strategies. I can't tell you how many patients I've seen both in my hospital practice and my private practice where when they start eating better, when they start getting a decent night's sleep and they're not doom scrolling at 3 a.m, when they have good boundaries, these basic strategies for self-care are really the foundation by which we build our mental temple off of, right? So keeping up with that basic self-care strategy. I know that's an overdone trope, but self-care is self-preservation and being able to keep up with that and take inventory and do it well. And having a therapist sometimes can help you stay accountable and check in. Maybe you have a spot that you're not quite recognizing. That self-care strategies, strengthening that is so important. The second is very simple, but and very practical, but very important as well, is sharing how you feel. If you're the kind of person who really prefers to be in isolation and not have to deal with your feelings, what they say is that, they say this, that, mold grows in a dark room. So do negative thoughts. The fact that you don't have somebody else's voice in your head, the fact that you're not getting influence from other people who care about you, it might feel in the moment like it's the better thing to do when you're in a bad mood to not talk to people or not do anything. But what we find is that that's really some of the thinking traps that get you stuck in a spiral of mental health challenges. Okay. I had a patient at the hospital, I tell this story occasionally, who, we had him in a treatment for treatment-resistant depression, and he would not get out of bed. He was in the inpatient setting. And the psychiatrist, who was brilliant, he's like, I've seen this before. And literally wrote in his treatment plan, the only thing we need to do is get out of bed. All we need to do, like literally all we need to do in this hospital admission. You don't need to take your meds. You don't need to drink water. You don't need to eat. I mean, like, obviously he did, but just getting out of bed, starting the process. And literally the first 2 days I was there, he was on his like 3rd or 4th day in his admission. Literally, he'd roll out of bed onto the floor. And that's how he started his day. But by the end of the week, he was sitting at the table. He was having lunch. He wasn't in the best mood, but he was in a better place than where he was if he wasn't talking with others, getting influence from others. Literally, the smallest thing is sometimes the most important thing. More skills. Who knows the Serenity Prayer? I grew up with it. My dad has been sober for 40 years, which is amazing. But I didn't really understand it until I started working with people with NF is, there's always going to be the effort of trying to make the experience better. Change is such an important part of why this organization even exists, right? We're all after the cure, and we're all after ways of managing and finding good answers. And pushing against things that don't change is like pushing against a concrete wall, right? It uses a lot of energy. It's unclear unless you're just like Superman or a bulldozer that wall is going to move. And maybe in large numbers, like if we can all do that same push at the same time, maybe that we did it with a vaccine, right? With COVID. Like if we could all do that, right, that would be great. But there are times where we need to accept the things we can't change to be able to work on the things that we can change. See, it's actually simple economics. If I'm wasting time and energy on one thing that cannot change versus using that same energy and putting it towards things I can, being able to tell the difference between those two is so important. So acceptance and change strategies and being able to really use those tools and decide when it's best. Okay? A few more just for fun. Gratitude and appreciation. This was a big part of our program. It came in like the last couple sessions to give a really like kind of sweet taste in our participants' mouth as they were ending this intervention. But who's keeping gratitude journals? Who keeps up with this sort of practice? And just shout it out if it means any. I mean, what's the value of that practice for you? Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So there's a social component there. Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's so great. And there's so many ways to do it now. Like if you have an iPhone, there's a journal app that will literally push notification you to write down something. You can put pictures in there. My wife does a journal. It's called a 1-a-day journal where you write one sentence every day. She's been doing it for 7 years. That's pretty incredible. Also, I have a great alibi. If I ever do something, I'll just be like, look at the journal. What were you thinking back there? Yeah? Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And I love that. And, I hope my daughter will want to talk to me when she's in college. But there's so many unique ways of doing this. I mean, my wife and I, when we were at grad school, we'd have this beautiful things text where we'd take a picture of something. And maybe it was like a meal we had at the restaurant, or she was living in Colorado, so like the mountains. And just trading these things. There's obviously the social component, but gratitude and practicing gratitude and appreciation literally changes the way you think. We have, and you'll hear about this if you stick around for the second talk, but we have this negativity bias that when things are hard or we're under stress or we're in pain, it's actually evolutionarily adaptable to be looking for the problem. Okay? So when we're in those states of being, we tend to be more negative, almost for survival. But at a certain point, it doesn't really help. It makes us worse. And so that ability to notice and retrain your brain and have gratitude and appreciation, it's like mental hygiene. It's like clearing out the gunk and just getting yourself moving in the right direction. Okay. You guys are doing awesome, by the way. Sorry, I'm so chatty. Setting achievable goals and improving your overall quality of life. Goals are life hacks. I don't know if you realize this. Never set a goal that you can't accomplish. I know it's nice to reach for the stars, but you could also just set a goal to eat a banana every day, and that's pretty awesome too, right? Set a goal, because what goals are, they're actually behavioral reinforcements from a mental health perspective and psychology. behavioral psychology perspective, like when you accomplish a goal, there's an intrinsic reward to it of saying, yes, I did it. I have friends who do checklists. Like they say like, oh, I got to get 17 things done today. And by the end of the day, they have 34 things added to that list. And it's never ending. And I'm like, I have 3 things to do today and I'm going to get them all done. And, the other 20 things I probably don't do obviously there's things I have to do, but hack your life. Like make a goal that you can accomplish and feel the reward of doing it. Okay. All right. And then I think this goes without saying, your doctors, the people who you count on for your physical, mental, emotional support, stay in touch. When you're feeling your worst, or you have, a scan coming up, or you feel like there's going to be bad news, it's really easy to try and avoid those things. But I'm of the camp, and I hope you are too, that your doctors really, really care about you, and they want you to be healthy, and they want to get to the answer with you. And so staying in touch, even in your worst moments, being able to stay in touch with your treatment team, with your psychologists, with your allied health professionals, these are all super important things. All right. Mental health resources, if you want to snap a picture of this page, you can. They're websites. You've probably all heard of Psychology Today. 10 years ago, I would have said, I don't know. That's the best we have. And I hate to say it in that respect, but that is actually a good thing. Anybody who's seeing patients right now is listed on psychologytoday.com. They keep it up to date, these providers. It's a directory, basically. You filter by insurance, by zip code, by specific problem. You can even modify and say like chronic health conditions. Making that first step in getting connected is as easy as just finding a therapist. So these are 3 resources that can help you do that. And I spoke with someone before, but I'm happy to share slides after. I'm sure this one's being recorded. The next one won't be, but if you have any additional questions, you're more than welcome to follow up with me too. Okay, so now we have time for a couple questions before we move into the next talk, which starts in 5 minutes. And if you want to take a break, get some coffee, go to the pool. See ya. Thanks for coming. We'll get started with the next talk in 5 minutes, but questions in the meantime.
Mine's not a question. Mine's not a question. My hack for goals is we do a bingo card in January, and it has goals that we do throughout the year.
I love that. Yeah, bingo card. That sounds really good. Yeah. Yeah, okay. If there aren't any other questions, stick around for the 3 o'clock talk if you're interested. Go grab some coffee. We'll start at 3:05.